Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we are going to cut through all the noise and get right to the heart of a huge topic, Bitcoin. But look, we're not going to be talking about price charts or any of that speculative stuff. Instead, we're going to build a really clear picture of what Bitcoin actually is, based on its core ideas.
But first, let's start with a question that probably hits pretty close to home. Have you ever looked at your savings and just had that feeling that the money you worked so hard to put away, it just doesn't go as far as it used to? That's a super common feeling, and let me tell you, it is not your imagination. So, to really get why this happens, we kind of have to understand the nature of money itself. And you know what? There's no better way to do that than to look at the history of money right here in the Checklands.
Just take a look at this timeline. Think about this. Over the last 130 years, people living in this very region have had to use at least 7 different official currencies. From a gold-backed krone to all these different versions of the koruna, the story has just been one of constant change, instability, and frequent resets.
And the takeaway from all this history? Well, it's pretty brutal. It doesn't matter if it was the government ditching the gold standard to pay for a war, or that insane communist monetary reform in 1953 that just wiped people out overnight. The pattern is clear. The state has, time and time again, devalued the money that ordinary people work their whole lives to save. Okay, so that's the problem. But what if there was a different way? What if there was a different kind of money? This is where Bitcoin enters the picture. And I want you to try to think of it less as a risky investment and more as a brand new system of money, one that plays by a completely different set of rules. This quote right here, it just nails it. Bitcoin was literally designed to be a form of money that exists completely outside the control of any single government or bank. It's a true alternative to the state-controlled systems we've always just had to accept. So what is it that makes Bitcoin's rules so radically different? Well, it really all comes down to 3 core properties. They're actually pretty simple to get your head around, but trust me, their implications are absolutely profound. Let's start with the first one, and you could argue it's the most important property of all. It's just this one number, 21 million. So what is that number? Well, that is the total, final, absolute maximum supply of Bitcoin that will ever exist. Unlike our traditional currencies, which central banks can basically print as much as they want of, Bitcoin's supply is locked. It's written into the code itself. This is a huge concept called digital scarcity. For the first time in history, we have a digital thing that is provably, truly rare. All right, the second key property is that Bitcoin is a permissionless network. What does that mean? It means anyone, anywhere in the world can use it without having to ask for permission from anyone. All you need is the internet. It's an open financial system, just like the internet is for information. And that makes it incredibly accessible and really, really hard to censor. And this chart really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? On one side, you have the fiat currency we use every day. The supply? Unlimited. The rules? Well, they can be changed whenever a central authority feels like it. Control is totally centralized. But then you look at Bitcoin. The supply is strictly limited to 21 million. The rules are predictable and baked right into the software protocol. And control? It's decentralized, spread out across thousands of users all over the world. Okay, so we've got these technical properties: scarcity, openness, predictability. Sounds a bit abstract, right? But the real question is, so what? Why does any of this actually matter in the real world? What's the impact of having a money that works like this? I think this quote says it perfectly. It's an unforgiving anchor to reality. Because you can't just bend Bitcoin's rules for political convenience. It forces a more honest, a more real approach to money. It anchors the entire system to mathematics, to a reality that simply can't be inflated away. You know, new types of money don't just pop into existence fully formed. They tend to evolve through these very distinct stages. First, something becomes a collectible because it has unique properties. Then people start using it to preserve their wealth over time. That's the store of value phase. Only after that does it have a shot at becoming a medium of exchange for buying stuff, and then finally, a unit of account for pricing things. Right now, Bitcoin is really digging its heels into that second stage. So here's the crucial point. Because Bitcoin's supply is finite and people trust that it can't be inflated away, they're choosing to use it to protect their purchasing power for the long haul. It's basically serving a role that's very similar to the one gold played for centuries, which is exactly why you hear people call it digital gold. Now, supporters of Bitcoin argue that adopting what's called sound money, money that holds its value, could lead to some pretty huge shifts in society. It could reduce the incentive to constantly be in debt. It could encourage more saving and smart investment. It could limit that unfair Cantillon effect where the people closest to the money printer get rich first. And overall, it might just help us all think more about the long-term future.
All right, so where does this all leave us? Let's zoom out a little bit and think about what this could all mean for the future of money itself.
When you really boil it all down, Bitcoin presents the world with a choice. It's a choice between two very different systems. Do we want to stick with money that's controlled by the state, subject to the whims and pressures of politicians? Or do we want to explore a system of money that's governed by mathematics, something predictable, transparent, and that no one can change?
And that really just leaves us with one final big question to think about. For our entire lives, we've basically just accepted that our savings will slowly leak value over time. But what if that wasn't just a fact of life? What if money couldn't be devalued? What kind of world would we build then?